I decided to visit one of our licensing officers to go and visit a proprietor of a Christian-owned media house. And you know what he was telling me? Actually, he was saying they think they are doing the artists a favor to give them airplay.
The formation of CMOs, their primary roles are to collect and distribute royalties. Mr. Koyoyo said there are elements who would not be transparent, not accountable, and maybe that's the reason why some of the film members here were laughing that they have never seen such happen. In my regime, I've come in with a strategy, and this strategy is not going to take long. I've given it 6 months to see that all registered members, when we meet again, we have to distribute royalties.
We had this conference with the producers, and they had concerns, and I think the same concerns apply to the filmmakers. Their concern was that the artists have taken their right. Nobody takes your rights, because the way copyright works, you gain copyright by creating, and then when you don't claim your copyright, somebody else can easily make use of it without your knowledge, without your permission. For example, in the case of the producers, there are multiple levels where you can utilize your copyright. But the discussion in that context was more about with the CMOs. So the artists had made effort to register their works with the CMO. But typically the way it works, if you're a producer and you're a stakeholder on any work, your duty is to make that claim. You write a letter and say this work, which was registered by party X, Mr. So-and-so, I am also a part owner. So you write a letter of direction making your claim and say I own this percentage. And if the other person disputes it, then a dispute process begins in which they will guide you on how to settle the process. But if you don't claim, then whoever has claimed goes ahead to monetize without you. Today's workshop was titled, How Can You Protect and Monetize Your Content? All the panelists here, already for Mr. Mike Strano, who has already been elaborating in detail how to do that. I would also want to bring to light all the work that these different panelists are doing through their organizations to enable creators to protect and monetize their work, because it appears is a lot that they are doing on behalf of the creators, but sometimes the creators are not aware of what they are doing. And in addition to not being aware, most of the times what they are doing requires you to do something else to support what they are doing. But because you don't know what they are doing, then you're unable to do that. So I would like to start with Mr. Charles Batambuze, the Vice Chairman of National Culture Forum, and please shed some light on what you're doing through NCF and through Euro in helping creators of literary works to protect and monetize their work.
Thank you so much. The book publishing sector, or the literary sector, which includes newspapers, magazines, books, and so on, everything literary, we are actually very well organized in terms of our value chain, and but also the advocacy around books and writing is also very well aligned, partly because in Uganda, government is the biggest market for books. As you know, the schools, the primary, secondary, tertiary colleges, universities, all those ones rely on the work of writers for purposes of education. And every year, government invests some considerable amount of money into the sector. So because of that kind of assured permanent market for books, it necessitates that we are very well organized. It goes without saying that there are some challenges, for instance, with the policy reversals. Sometimes government changes the way they want to procure these books. So the people concerned have to be organized to respond to those changes. There have also been instances where government wanted to impose VAT on books, and we have responded as a sector to ensure that, the status quo is maintained. Because the truth is, if books were to attract VAT, they would become expensive and out of reach for many people. Our biggest challenge is piracy. Piracy in terms of people selling physical copies of books. But nowadays, books are also available on the phones. So you write your nice book, and all of a sudden, by the time you know it, it has been distributed to 1 million people or more within Uganda, but also across the continent. So that affects sales directly. For the physical piracy, we have set up a system of tracking and so on. These collecting societies have staff that work as copyright inspectors. Their work is to enter premises, inspect, search, confiscate, and sometimes arrest culprits. We have done that so many times within the book sector, and we continue to do that. We also introduced a sticker, a hologram, which authors and publishers use on their books. The purpose of that hologram is to authenticate books to the market. We also use it in enforcement, because when we work with police officers are not writers, so they will not know that this is the original book and this is the infringing book. So when they go out, they look for the sticker. And all books without stickers, ideally, we confiscate them until the bookshop or school can prove that these do not infringe copyright. Now, the other way that piracy is handled is through licensing. Many times, people pirate because they lack access to licenses. If you want to license a book written by a British author, how do you approach it? First of all, you don't have this author's contact. So the CMOs exist so that they can make it easy for people to access licenses and therefore be able to avoid breaking the law, piracy. So we offer a range of licenses to universities, tertiary colleges, but also public administration, where books are copied and used in various contexts. And the whole idea is that if people are enabled to have access to these licenses, then they will not infringe copyright. And we collect royalties for writers and publishers through those licenses that we issue, so that people can earn. Other than selling a physical copy of a book, copyright grants you many rights. And ideally, other than selling the physical copy, even the other rights you should be able to earn from. Some of the rights that we manage under URO, we are able to monetize them through that way, giving out licenses to education, public administration, and all other people that use literary works. Now, at the level of the National Culture Forum, we recognized that our law is weak. The 2006 law, Copyright and Neighboring Rights Act of 2006. In fact, during the COVID years, Boomplay came to Uganda and they wanted to invest $3 million in this economy. So when they did their due diligence, they discovered that the Copyright and Neighboring Rights Act of 2006 does not adequately protect people that are trading in our creative products in an online context. So, like Boomplay would not make money from this economy. If they were to invest that money, they would lose it completely. Likewise, there have been other people interested in our country, investing and whatever, but because of the copyright law, they were discouraged from investing because of rampant piracy that is online, but also perpetuated also by devices. As you know, the prices for devices are going down. There is huge demand, and also somehow the cost of internet is also dropping, even though it is still a challenge, because if we are to stream from your website, it would cost us such a huge sum of money. We have agitated elsewhere that, government should consider reducing the cost of data so that more local content can be streamed online, or so that we can have more people, more Ugandans streaming their content online. So we started a campaign to reform the Copyright Act. And as I speak now, this week we've been circulating the first draft of the Copyright and Neighboring Rights Amendment Bill 2024, from which was issued by government for comment. Some of the things there, they have of course provided for protections for online content, but also this protection has been existing. Many creatives don't know that the Electronic Transactions Act, I think it's of 2019, imagine 2019, has provisions that you can use to block websites, that you can use to ask for takedowns of content that is infringing your work. So anyway, that is one of the provisions there. There was a huge campaign which we spearheaded with the Uganda Musicians Association concerning CRBTs or caller tunes. The challenge was the musicians were being exploited. The 700 shillings which we pay for a caller tune, government was taking half of it. The balance, the telecoms would take 80%. Then the 20% which remains is shared between the aggregator and the artist. But the artist was taking 12 shillings. So 12 shillings for 700. And we said, surely, how can the artist invest so much and yet benefit almost nothing from... So inspired by the Kenyan example, because we saw in Kenya that the sharing of caller tunes is now regulated by law. So we said, even here, actually, I've always said that very soon our Kenyan musicians will start having private choppers, while Ugandan artists continue to ride on border. So we need to change that equation. And we have agitated successfully for a provision within the amendment bill that regulates revenue share for caller tune. Actually, our recommendations, all of them have been adopted. We said the artist is entitled to 60% of the money that is generated. So of the 700 shillings, the artist takes 60% of that money. That is what we have advocated for, and is what is included in the bill. And then the others share the rest. However, each party pays their taxes to government, because paying taxes is what? An obligation. We believe all of you need to join forces to fight for that, because as you know, the telecoms will go to parliament. When finally this bill comes to parliament, they'll go there to say, no, we don't agree. But those of us, the rest of us should agree and say it is a good measure that will support the music industry. The other key issue in the law that we had asked for was what is called the private copy levy or private copy remuneration. Nowadays, all of you know that we consume your content on gadgets or devices. So the gadget is not only a tool, but it's also the primary market for your creative goods. And most times, actually, piracy has been made worse with improved access to gadgets. We don't pay for this content, but all of you are very popular because we watch your movies, we read your books, we listen to your music, we watch your music videos and so on. And yet, even though you are popular, you are not making any money because we are not paying for that content. Just as there is that slide which you showed that subscription in Africa is a mirage in a way, because, and I liked it that only 1% are subscribing who owns the 99%. So the 99%, most of us are part of that 99% using our gadgets, and we are making the musicians and the writers and filmmakers, everybody in the creative industry poorer. So we had agitated for a provision within the law called a private copy levy or private copy remuneration that would get money collected at customs points on all gadgets that come into the country, or if the gadgets are manufactured within Uganda, that money will be collected at the factory. And there will be a fund created, and that fund, the money put there will be distributed through to the collecting societies so that they can distribute to the members. Unfortunately, that provision, Cabinet debated it, and the people, Minister of Agriculture said, oh, when you increase the cost of the gadgets by this levy, the farmers who are beginning to embrace technology will abandon embracing digital technologies. Minister of Education objected. They said, oh, when you put a levy on the gadgets and yet we're encouraging the students to get online, it will affect. The other objectors were science and technology. There was also, the other objector was the Minister of ICT and National Guidance. And I'm surprised by Minister of ICT and National Guidance because all of us buy better phones, for example, to have a better experience of the videos, of the content that we want to watch online. So in other words, content drives demand for gadgets. Equally, content drives demand for internet, or it drives internet penetration across the country. So, but all these people have disregarded you, the content creators. So the campaign is on. We want the private copy levy reinstated back into the bill. We have written to that effect because they invited us to make written submissions. The bill is still a draft. It is still with the Ministry of Justice, and we have made these submissions. But now we need to make the noise. Please join us, join the campaign. We'll be providing more information so that when you speak out, you speak from a point of knowledge. And also speak to your MPs when the bill gets to the level of Parliament. All of you should show that really the devices are the ones that are making you poorer. Jeff, sorry, but just one more thing about the devices. Those of you that work in film know that years ago when you were distributing on VHS, those tapes, a film was 10,000 Uganda shillings. Nowadays, when you go downtown to look at the cost, film is between 200 shillings to 2,000 Uganda shillings. Now, if you have invested 4 million to produce your movie, how long will it take you to recover the cost that you have invested? So the gadget, we have argued in our paper that the gadget actually has made the market for film to collapse. If we don't take interventions such as putting this levy on the gadgets, the film industry will be swept away. Music probably will still survive, but with the huge losses. And the book sector will probably be wiped out because recently we did books for the new curriculum. And all these books, once they reached school, the teachers scanned them using their phones and just shared around. So the writers and the publishers did not make any money. I submit for now.
Thank you very much, Charles. Yes, please.
I have a quick question, but maybe you can answer. The percentage of the levy and what's the forecast for revenue?
Okay, I think Charles can elaborate on the levy.
The levy is on gadgets like phones, tablets, external whatever, and so on. We have proposed 3%, which for a phone that costs 1 million, 3% of 1 million is what? Maybe about 30,000. 30,000 cannot stop a person from buying a phone. The projection, we project that if we instituted the levy today, we would collect up to 78 billion Uganda shillings.